views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, when it comes to seeking a new job, the hiring process does have a number of legal and practical considerations. The process can be a bit difficult, as many a viewer can attest to, but don't worry. On set, we will have an attorney who specializes in all things employment, so you can get a foot into your future employment doorway. Next up, people feeling ill treatment in their home country can qualify for refugee or asylum status, but how is this done? A legal expert will be on set to help guide us. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. All right, hello, and welcome to Today's Verdict, the live and interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook at Today's Verdict, and check us out at bronxnet.tv. Well, the hiring process includes a number of legal issues, including federal equal employment opportunity laws, as well as state codes. The hiring process itself can be daunting, as it involves applying for a job, the job interview, the job offer, negotiations, and much more. We'll learn more from attorney Delmis Costin. Delmis, I love when I have repeat guests, especially when they're friends of mine. So thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you for having me, David. Appreciate it.
Listen, let's talk just broadly about the employment market right now as it stands. A lot of has been made about the numbers being very good, and there are jobs out there. I know that people aren't necessarily loving the jobs they may have, right, which I think is a reason why we really have you here, because they may have a job, but they may want another one. Okay, what is your feelings about the job markets itself? How do you? What does it seem like to you? Does it seem like people are happy, they want to leave? What's going on, really?
Well, I handle employment law. I have a lot of clients who have employment-related issues, and they come in. A lot of times, they're not quite satisfied with their jobs, not where they want to be, and sometimes they ask me, "So what can I do to move on? I want to have some other options." They're underemployed.
Is it a money issue? Is it a time issue? Where do they complain? Maybe it's a little both.
It's a money issue. It varies.
Okay.
It could be they're not making enough money. It could be that their family issues. They have to commute too far to get to work, or something along those lines, or they're not doing what they really want to do. What really makes them happy. They have a job, not a career. Something that they don't mind waking up every morning to go to.
Well, let's talk about the process to start looking for the job. What do you usually tell them? It's changed now. It
Right.
doesn't work with just, let's say, Craigslist or just using a newspaper to look through the wanted ads. What do you tell them to do usually?
Sure. Well, the first thing I ask them is, tell me, what is it that you really want to do? What is it that makes you happy? And then spend some time finding out about that job path or that job career that you're interested in. Then I would also ask them, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you can do? And what is it that you can get? Those are the three questions that I asked them. And by asking those questions, by seriously thinking about those questions and writing down your answers to those questions, my clients tend to come up with something that
So you give them a little homework.
I give them some
Because you
homework.
probably have to think these things through.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
So let's say now they know what they want to do, they know what they're able to do.
Yep.
Are they looking on particular websites, word of mouth? How does it usually come about, really?
There are two ways. The internet is a huge game changer. In the past 20 years, you go online, Indeed, Craigslist, Monster.com, tons of job websites, and you apply. And you get a lot of emails sent to you every week listing jobs that you might be interested in. So if you were to say that you're interested in, let's say, being an administrative assistant or being an office manager or being an attorney in a law firm, you will receive emails saying, these are potential jobs.
I want you to know I've used Indeed. I happen to like it.
Yes.
I've had to replace certain people in my office, and it's worked perfectly. Now, okay, so you go on Indeed or you go anywhere, and you got to create a resume, don't you?
Yes, you have to create a resume.
Now, we're attorneys, so let's talk about this.
Sure.
There are obviously things you should not be putting on a resume.
Right.
Right. Listen, everybody wants to make themselves out to be the greatest employee
Right.
in the history of the world, but let's talk about, overextending.
Sure. Sure. Well, the whole purpose of a resume is to give a potential employer information about you as an individual and to make the employer say, hey, this is somebody I want to have come in. But you can't lie on your resume.
Don't say you have a college degree when you don't.
Right. Don't say that. Don't say that you worked for a job for a whole year when you only worked there for 2 months, right? Because if you get hired, your employer may check where you worked, and if they find out that you did not tell the truth on your resume, you could lose your job.
All right. So hopefully you got the right resume.
Yep.
You've created it the way. I mean, is it still 1 page, 2 pages? How does it? I mean, that's always a debate, isn't it?
Keep it to 1 page.
1 page.
Keep it to 1 page.
Nice and quick. All right.
Yeah.
So now you got the interview, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure you're not the only one. There'll be a
Right.
lot of people coming for the interview.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about dress. What do you wear? What do you do?
Dress professionally. Men, jacket, tie. Ladies, blouse, blouse, slacks. You want to look conservative to a certain extent. I mean, and it all depends on where you're going. Let me start off by that. If you're coming to work in, let's say, in a law office, what I described is the way you want to appear, because I want somebody that can represent my law firm. If you're, let's say you're going for a job in, let's say, construction. If you're going for a job in construction, show up ready to work, because a lot of times that's word of mouth. That's how you get those jobs.
I also tell people this on this show as well when they come on as guests. They say, well, what do I wear? I said, well, how do you want to look
Right.
to the viewers?
Right.
How do you? I mean, you're an attorney, shirt and tie.
Right.
That's what you want. Some attorneys, no tie. It depends on how they want to come across.
Absolutely.
So dress as you want to portray yourself to the future employer.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's critical.
All right.
That's critical.
So now we're walking into the interview room.
Right.
This is where it can get a little tricky because there are questions that we should get these out of the way first. There are questions that cannot be asked
Sure.
for legal reasons.
Right.
Let's talk about a few of them.
How old are you?
Okay.
Where are you from?
Now, by the way, you would think that would be fine. Well, I just want to know, how old you are, and then I know the experience that you have in life. But that's a no-no.
That's a no-no. That's a no-no because it could set somebody up for an age discrimination claim, or so the law says you should not ask. Those
Right, because
questions.
there are plenty of people who are 50s, 60s, 70s who are looking for jobs.
Right, absolutely.
And it's none of their business how old you are.
Right, and the law wants you to focus solely on the qualifications of the individual.
Okay. Are you married?
Shouldn't ask. Off limits. Not supposed to ask that.
You have kids?
Shouldn't ask that either.
Now, an employer would want to know this because they'd maybe want to know, what your job, what your home schedule is like. Is there a way to ask a question in such a way that you're finding out whether this potential employee has to get home early to take care of elderly children or something like that, so that if you want to ask them to stay late, they may say, I can't, ever.
Right. Well,
It's interesting.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's part of the conversation, because I think an interview should be a conversation. I also think it's a two-way street, but it'll come out. Information will come out. How do you spend your time? What do you like to do? And then, well, I go out with my family. So
But you have to be careful, though.
You have to be careful.
You can't cross the line.
Right.
All right. Any other things that come on during that interview process that you're like, oh, that's not going to fly,
Those are really.
Those are the main ones.
Those are the main ones. Those are the main ones.
Okay. They can't ask you, are you dating anybody? Like, you can't get personal and really. It's just professional.
Yes.
Can they ask you about your conviction history, the criminal background?
No.
Can't ask that.
Can't ask that.
Really?
That is off limits. That is off
So
limits.
if you have somebody sitting in front of you who you think may have had multiple convictions, have been in and out of jail, you can't ask that.
Cannot ask
Can't
that.
ask. That's very interesting.
The only
People should
time,
know that.
Right. The only time that you can that's even an issue is after an offer has been extended.
Now, by the way, that doesn't mean that you can't do your own due diligence, though, to check out if this particular employee has been convicted. Can you not, or you cannot?
And you can investigate.
Right,
that,
but you
sure.
can't ask.
You can't ask. You can't ask, and you're not supposed to use it against the employee. And actually, I'm gonna walk back.
Okay.
Because the conviction issue cannot be used at all in the in deciding whether or not to employ
it
somebody.
can't be.
Yeah. So
So the employer probably couldn't even look then.
I wouldn't even do it if I were an employer. No. No. Why set yourself up for a
Now,
potential
interesting
problem?
from my perspective, or my field at least as a trial attorney,
Right.
you want to know whether there's been any convictions of your own client, because your client can be cross-examined on truth and veracity during a trial. So you want to know. So I'll ask my client, even though it's a civil case, have you been convicted of a crime?
Sure, and that's fair game.
That's fair.
That's
That's
fair.
not. I'm not hiring for a
Right,
job.
exactly.
Okay, so now a job has been extended.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
All right. By the way, how does that work? Are you negotiating a pay? How does talk about it a little
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a two-way street. Like I said before, an interview is a two-way street. An offer is made to you. Do I want to work for you for $15 an hour? Do I want more? Right? Yeah, you can have that conversation. Nothing is written in stone. Everything's negotiable. So if the employer comes up to you and says, "Listen, Domus, I want to hire you. Can you start on Monday?" You can say, "I can't start on Monday. Can we start a little bit later?" You can have that conversation. And it's okay because the employer really wants you. He'll work with you.
Now,
Or she will
under
work
the
with
law,
you.
by the way, assuming you're getting hired, you're an employee at will.
Usually.
All right. So because this isn't like Yankee. You're not a baseball player. You're not getting an employment contract. Generally not.
Generally, unless your employer has a union in place already.
Or that would be different.
Right.
But just randomly, you're hired. You're an employee at will. If they have a bad dream about you the night before, they can fire you the next day.
That's right. Good reason, bad reason, no reason.
Doesn't
at
matter.
all.
Just fire you.
Yes.
Which leads us to really the reasons they can't fire you.
Right.
And that leads to some discrimination, employment, sexual harassment, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Let's talk about, you get the job, you got your desk, you're ready to go.
Yep.
What are you told or not told about behavior, what you should wear in terms of how you should wear your hair? These are all things that all of a sudden, oh my God, why is this even being brought up to me?
Right, right.
Talk about HR.
HR, I'm a little cynical, but HR is supposed to help you get acclimated to the job, but actually HR, in my opinion, is designed to protect the employer.
Of course,
To
they don't work
protect
for
the-
you, they work for the employer.
Exactly. So, if there are issues regarding how to be or behave at work, talk to HR and they'll give you the baseline. If you're in a big employer, they'll give you a handbook, so you have all the information.
But they're not your attorney.
They're not your attorney.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you do have rights as an employee.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You have the right not to be harassed by your employer, sexually harassed,
Sexually harassed, sure.
discriminated against.
Absolutely.
And that leads to, we were talking about a little bit off air about the hair. There's been new bills that,
Sure,
that
sure.
have been signed into law. They can't do that. They can't force you to wear your hair a certain way.
That's right. Under the New York City human rights law, there's an employment guidance saying that you can wear your hair however you want to at work. Pretty
Okay.
much.
How do you come into the picture usually? Are you overlooking contracts? Are you discussing issues? Tell me how you end up really getting into the thick and thin when it comes to employment.
Sure. So primarily people come to me when they have problems at work. They've been terminated or they've suffered some type of discrimination at work. And they come to me and say, Dalmas, please help me fix this. And what does fixing it mean? It could mean talking to the employer and getting the employer to stop the discriminatory behavior. Or it could be, let's go to court and sue them because you've already been fired and they do not want to rehire you. So, that's how I come into play. And I handle pretty much 14. It's interesting, we talked about discrimination, we said it in very general terms. There are at least 14 specific concrete categories of discrimination that the law protects against,
Wow.
right?
So it's important to know you, to just know exactly what your rights are. And that if you're feeling uncomfortable, well, ask, right? By the way, which is important. Where do we find you, by the way?
Oh, sure. I'm located in the Bronx. Number, address, what do you want?
Whatever you like.
Sure. Number 718-618-0589, located by the courthouse, 164th
We don't have
Street.
too much time. Big tip.
Yes.
Somebody's watching right now, they think they're having an issue with an employer. What would you tell them to do at work at least?
Sure. Two things. One, keep track of what has occurred, which is problematic. And two, if you think you're a victim of discrimination, complain to the powers that be, whether it be the owner, your manager, or human resource, and say, I'm not being treated fairly, and I think I'm a victim of discrimination.
And number 3, call you.
And call me,
And you're going
yeah.
to come back, right?
Yes, I'll come back. Love to come back.
We love having you here. All
Thank
right.
you, David.
We have to take a quick break, but don't worry, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this.
can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
All right, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. We are always encouraging you to stay connected. Tweet us at today's verdict. Asylum refugee is a status which permits an individual entering and remaining in the country. Unfortunately, not every individual is eligible for asylum. The nexus issue arises in various different contexts. We'll hear more about this with attorney Jose Orochena. Jose, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
This is a little bit of a tricky issue, only because it's such a political issue all the time. But I want you to back us up a little bit, if that's possible.
Sure.
Take us back, as far as you can in certain respects, in terms of refugee and our country and our position on letting people in who are fleeing their own home country.
Well, historically, I'm talking about even to the inception of the country, it was a very open border. People just came in, and so long as you could demonstrate good moral character, you were let in and you were offered citizenship. After the World War II, there was some adjustments because the laws prior to 1960s were very racist, actually. It gave preference to certain countries, and 70% of the people who immigrated to the United States were for certain European countries. Then in the 60s, there was a reform, and they started doing quotas for, not quotas, they used to give certain visas, max cap of visas. And then we have now, the biggest change recently to our immigration laws happened in 1997 when I believe it was Bill Clinton signed a immigration reform, and it now gave certain exclusion. It said these people, these group of people, if you are convicted of certain things, if you committed certain crimes, you were excluded from pretty much all types of immigration benefits.
Now, why?
Well, there's something called in immigration aggravated felonies, and it's actually enumerated. And if you commit any of these crimes, drug trafficking, money laundering to a certain amount, murder, rape, these types of crime excluded no matter what. It doesn't matter if you have children in the United States, doesn't matter if it happened 10 years ago. If you are convicted of what's called an aggravated felony, after 1997, you are barred from pretty much every type of relief.
When we say asylum refugee, what do we mean? Like, what does that really mean?
What it means now is people coming to our borders and asking for asylum. Currently, most of my clients recently are coming from 3 countries: Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador.
All right. Let's maybe take them one at a time in terms of those countries. What seems to be the major reason they're fleeing? Let's say Honduras.
There's a humanitarian crisis going on in Honduras right now. There is so much poverty, violence. Donald Trump likes to mention the gang violence. There are gangs in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. MS-13, which is typically a El Salvadorian gang, but it's stretched throughout the country, throughout these 3 countries. And what's happening is that there's a lot of violence, and the governments are either incapable or unwilling to protect their public. And then there's poverty. There's abject poverty. I know because my clients come and they tell me, I can't feed my family. So the pain of hunger, the threats of violence, and whatever they're able to make in their countries, now they're being extorted by the local gangs.
Well, when they come to you or should I say when they reach you and they're looking for asylum status, are they doing this here while they're here already, or are they in another country trying to get here for asylum, or both, or something else?
Good luck trying to file for asylum in your home country.
So they got to get here.
Most of my clients are here. They're not calling me from their home countries. They're already here at the United States. And a growing majority of them are coming with children. And these, I mean, when I see these people coming, trekking through Mexico by foot, and they get to our border, and they reach, and they finally get through, and they have a credible fear interview where an immigration officer asks them, explain to me what you're fearing. And if the officer feels that, yes, you are credible and you have a credible fear of returning to your home country, then they will determine whether or not they should be released into our country. And that's what's happening. A lot of my clients are coming with 4 or 5-year-old children. They're carrying them sometimes, you know, across the border.
So let's say once they get to you, how does it work in terms of like the interview process? What are you doing? Are you doing research to find out about what village and what country? Like, how do you even go about piecing it all together for some kind of petition?
So I'll give you an example. Right now, I have 3 fathers. They're all living together in Middletown, New York. It's a very small town, upstate, not quite upstate New York, but they're there. And they're all from Guatemala. And they're all from indigenous backgrounds. And they all speak Kikche. What do I know about Kikche? Absolutely nothing.
As much as I know.
Exactly. So in Guatemala, there's apparently a group of people that speak a native Mayan language. And so I'm able to communicate with them in Spanish because I'm fluent in Spanish. But their main language is Kikche. And so they're telling me about there's abject poverty in their communities. So I'm having to figure out what's causing this poverty. And it's these multinational corporations. What they're doing is that they're just buying up all these lands. And if you don't sell your land to them, then guess what? You're going to be harassed and even threatened with physical violence until you succumb to their demands. And now you're growing something called palm oil, right? What's palm oil? And now I have to research about what's palm oil. Palm oil's in everything, in so many products. So now they're being kicked off their land. There is no work, or they're taking these jobs, getting pennies a day. So so now they go and ask their government, please help us because these people are coming to my house and threatening me with violence. Or if I don't succumb or work for them, now I'm feared that they're going to kill me. And what does the government do? They turn a blind eye to them. So why? Because they're Native Americans and they're marginalized.
So let's say now. So what do? Are you drafting a petition? Who you sending it to? Like where do you go from here?
Okay. So now it's so difficult for me. It's such a difficult job. Now I have to say, okay. So did you go to the police? Do I have to go to a small town and try to find a small town in Guatemala that doesn't have a conventional police force?
Right.
So where do you file your complaint? Because immigration wants to see, did you file a police complaint? Sure. I'll show you the police station is the second tree on the left from the dirt road, right?
It's sad, but it's true.
It's now I have to gather evidence to show, yes, this person has been persecuted. The government either refuses or is willfully denying them access to the courts.
What's the next thing? So then you have a hearing. Where do you go after that?
So in order to apply for asylum, first things first, you have to show that you have past persecution or fear of future persecution. So now I can show, yes, this person went to the hospital. Why did they go to the hospital? Because they would run off the road on their bicycle or on their motorcycle, whatever the case may be. Now that's past persecution. Then you have to show a nexus. Why was this person persecuted? What's the connection? And in the United States, the asylum laws only allow you to file for asylum if, I always remember the acronym of my favorite radio station, NPR, right?
Okay.
Nationality, political opinion, and political opinion, the religious beliefs, particular social group, or race. So now we have to tie in, we have to say this past persecution is tied into one of these 5 factors. And then if we're able to do that, then the immigration courts should grant them asylum. However, these immigration courts are not 100% independent. We always think about the Supreme Court, complete independent branch of government. No, these immigration courts are part of the executive branch. So the executive, the president, can tell them, no, I want you to focus on these. They can tell judges, these people qualify, these people don't. And so now, if it's illegal, the grounds why certain administrations are taking certain actions, then you can sue and you could take it to an independent judicial branch.
Now-
But that becomes so difficult.
Now, and you brought a decision with you, a recent decision, right? Tell me about that.
So this is a mother who fled Mexico, and Mexico is 88% denial rates. They're just denying it. But this mother fled with her little 6-year-old son. It's a really horrible story. We had the interview, we had the trial, essentially. It's called the individual hearing. We had the hearing. Mom was able to credibly tell the immigration judge, they killed my brother-in-law. These gangs are running rampant. The government refuses. They don't pay me any attention because I'm a woman. But the immigration judge says, okay, I believe you that you face persecution. However, there is no link between, there's no nexus between the five.
So I see the decision here. So it's, December 21st, 2018. So what do you do? Do you appeal the decision? What's the next
Now
thing
we
there?
appeal it to something called the Board of Immigration Appeals.
So there's a lot of work that still has to be done. All right. By the way, where do we find you? Someone's watching right now. They want their family member themselves applying for asylum. How do they do it? Go ahead, tell me.
You can give us a call. We give free consultations to anyone, 24/7. We have a WhatsApp call number. It's 646-580-9692. And we welcome anybody to
Listen,
call
it's
us if they
important
need.
stuff. There are so many people here. It's a life or death.
Exactly.
If they're not granted asylum, they end up going back.
And when this president wants to deter people from coming,
That's not good.
imagine a deterrence for hunger, murder, rape. There's nothing that will deter them from coming.
Well, thanks for coming back. And you
Thank
can
you.
come back again, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and, of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at www.bronxnet.tv. Also remember, if there is a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet us at Today's Verdict, and make sure to hashtag Ask Today's Verdict. For myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. See you next time.